Good morning, social studies students. I'm Mr. Seow, and today I want to teach the skill of evaluation. You will notice on the website in the source skill tree that the skill evaluation does not appear in this skill tree. This is because the component skill of evaluation, the central component, is inference. So, what makes an evaluation question different from an inference question? Because you know that evaluation at the current syllabus is worth 10 marks. So I'll be teaching that. And a special note to O-level students that beyond inference, you will also need your reliability and or your utility skills when doing evaluation. But for N-level students, inference is the only required skill. So you should have with you your evaluation notes. I'll be primarily teaching this skill from the N-level perspective, and I will switch over where relevant to talk about the O-level question. By the end of this lesson, you will be able to categorize sources, please highlight, based on their stand, please highlight, in relation to an assertion. So there are three components to this objective. There's a categorizing component, there's a stand component, and there's an assertion component. What does that mean? The first question you want to ask yourself or ask me is, what is an assertion? And I'm going through that in just a bit. The second objective is that you will be able to argue for and against a given assertion by using evidence from the sources. Please highlight this entire objective. And in other words, this objective is telling you that you must be able to make inferences. So this is where the skill of inference comes in. It's a theoretical sort of framework I'm giving you right now. So later on when we do the actual worksheet, you will see this come alive. So let's start with the assertion. As I said, we are going to talk about what an assertion is. An assertion is a statement about the world. You could also call this a claim, or you could is a statement. It is something that people want to establish. That's an assertion. Most assertions in daily life are one-sided. They are not contentious because they are factual. So for example, if you were to say the bus is coming at 9 a.m. or if you were to say to get to Bishan MRT from Dakota, I would take the Circle Line. Or if you were to say the sun has risen. Or if you were to say I would break fast today after the sun is down. These are factual questions. These are factual assertions. They are just statements of fact. Nothing wrong. You have said it, and we move on. Or it could be personal. You could say, I like ice cream. You could say, I like Genshin Impact. You could say, I dislike social studies. Oh, I like social studies. And there's nothing wrong with this either, because this is just a personal claim, assertion. However, the assertions we are interested in social studies, in particular the assertions that you will be tested on in social studies, are assertions that will be somewhat contentious because they need to include multiple perspectives. They need to have a source A that says something and a source B that says something else, right? And these assertions tend to emerge in the anchor question, but specifically in question 5. In question 5, the assertion will be given to you, and that's when we need to understand the sources in relation to this assertion. And hence, when we evaluate the assertion in question 5, we will have two-sided arguments. There will be a yes side, there will be a no side. So again, when over here, at both sides, I want you to write there will be a yes side and there will be a no side. There will be yes, there will be no, or because there is yes and no. This is a bit theoretical. Let me give you an example of an assertion I could give at a national exam. Suppose the assertion is Singapore's healthcare system works perfectly well. Singapore's healthcare system works perfectly well. That could be an assertion. You could imagine a set of 5 or 6 sources talking about the Singapore healthcare system and people's experience of Singapore healthcare system. Suppose source A you don't need to copy this. I'm typing it out so that you have a visual, especially for visual learners, a visual sort of view of what I'm trying to express in this part of the lesson. Suppose source A were or government minister who talks about all the funding given to health care subsidies. This would be a yes or no source. Would it be works well, doesn't work well? Is it a yes or no source? Suppose source B is, a patient who has enjoyed top treatment in a Singapore medical facility. In fact, this could even be a healthcare tourist, it even could be a foreign patient. Yes or no? Source C could be a local patient. Imagine complaining about the very long wait of months for their elective surgery appointment that is delayed again due to the COVID-19 situation. You could really imagine now this case study coming out, right? Coming to life. And source D could be a doctor that works very hard, highly qualified, the 12-hour shifts, gives quality patient care and is now is exhausted every day about to quit the job. Sorry to my doctor friends. This is the reality of your life. I've expressed it in a couple words. You look at these 4 sources, these 4 sort of theoretical, hypothetical sources at this moment, which could really very well be an actual source-based case study. And you look at these 4 sources, which one says yes, which one says no? Source A, the minister saying that healthcare gets lots of money, it would be a yes source. Because yes, healthcare system works really well, right? It has all the money, it can run, it's well resourced. It can buy all the machines it needs and hire all the doctors it needs. And source B, the foreign patient who has enjoyed the top treatment. Yes, I come to Singapore, I get a great healthcare, I get a great medical treatment, I got my surgery done, I flew in and I had the top class ward in the top class hospital. My view of healthcare is great. Whereas the local patient who had to go through the national healthcare route and wait for the appointment for months and months and got delayed, would say, no wait, I've waited so long, this system isn't working, it's a shambles, or people keep delaying my appointment, I'm just angry, what is the inefficiency, what is going on? And then you go to the doctor, and I pause here because the first 3 were very clear. And what is this source D doctor gonna say? Is it gonna say yes, the system works well, or no, the system does not work well? Can you pause and think about this? And I hope you did pause and think about it and you have a response. The answer is yes. The healthcare system works perfectly well. Why? Because there are highly qualified medical professionals taking care of their patients, which means the healthcare system is giving top tier treatment. Notice I'm doing inference as I do the stand, right? So yes, the answer is yes, healthcare system works perfectly well, and it doesn't end there. The answer is also no. This is a two-sided source, and it's also no because the healthcare system has overworked its employees to the point where its employees are gonna leave the system. So the healthcare system is not treating its employees the right way. And that is the part where it's not working well. So again, pause this video, take a think about how we have analyzed these sources. And from this hypothetical example, actually, I've already accomplished the first objective. You have seen what is an assertion, how sources could interact with an assertion stand, and how we categorize sources as yes source and no source. Okay, at this point, I'll now proceed on to the actual worksheet. So you know that there are some steps we will do. First, we need to understand the assertion. Second, we will categorize the source. Again, yes source or no source. In the N-level syllabus, the command word is show. So I want you next to this word show to just write yes. Does not show would be no. For ease, for simplicity, and for clarity, when I teach both N and O level classes, I will just teach you yes and no. We will all categorize sources as yes and no sources. And then you will answer to the specifics of your question for N and for O level. And the final step is using those sources, you create arguments, yes and no. And these arguments are in fact, in essence, inferences. You are inferring from the source, you explain the inference. From the hypothetical example, you saw what I was doing. I gave the explanations verbally, so you can replay that part to hear the verbal explanations. And then you draw evidence from the source to prove your point. Okay, N-level students, let's pause for a moment. Sorry, was actually a blank. You did not see that. And you would read this question, right? And you would say, how far do the sources in the case study show that casual racism is a problem in Singapore? Explain your answer. What is the statement? What is the statement? Try to fill it in. You will see that the statement is here. And therefore the statement, the assertion is casual racism is a problem in Singapore. This is the assertion. And then for N-level students, can I invite you now to pause the video and go through the whole case study? Go through the whole case study and categorize every source as yes source is a problem or no source is not a problem. Okay, this is clearly a yes source. It is full of racist remarks, and the racist remarks would lead to misery, unhappiness, prejudice, unfairness, tensions, and even conflicts in society. So this is clearly a no source. I'm sorry. This is clearly a yes source. This is clearly a source where it says casual racism is a problem. Yes, casual racism is a problem. Categorize all the sources for N-level students. And now let's talk about the O level type of question. Now, the O level type of question, I've swapped over to O level now. It is not, for ease of comparison, I'm just going to show the N level again. The N level was how far do sources in case studies show that casual racism is a problem. I drew out the assertion from the question. From the question, I pulled out the assertion. This is the N level. For O level, the assertion is given to you. Again, the assertion is given to you. So you would simply park the same assertion in the source categorization table directly from the question. In that sense, the O-level paper is kinder because it gave you the assertion. However, the N-level paper is kinder in a different way. For the O-level paper, the assertion, let's see here, Singapore is on its way to achieving a racially harmonious society. For the O-level paper, the assertion would be different from the anchor question. Is casual racism a problem? The anchor question of the case study and the assertion given in question 5 would be slightly different. And now you know where my lesson is going. If you were an N-level student taking the N-level paper, the assertion in question 5, casual racism is a problem. The assertion here will be identical to the anchor question. You convert the anchor question into an assertion, and it will be the same idea. I must caveat that this is based on the current syllabus documents and exam papers we have seen. Singapore and Cambridge always reserve the right to tweak and modify whatever national exams they give in the following years. So what I'm teaching, what I'm describing in terms of how the question relates to the anchor question is a pattern, not a perennial truth, right? So the pattern we have established for many years is that the anchor question for N-level paper will be the assertion for N-level paper. Pattern, not perennial truth. So N-level students, please go and categorize this into yes and no sources. So shows again is yes, but does not show is no. And if you are my O-level student, you please can go ahead and do the same thing, plug in the assertion from this statement, and then categorize the yes and no sources. Let me skip ahead. I think you would have found that the yes sources, yes, casual racism is a problem. You would have found that the yes sources are B, D, and E. In fact, C as well. B, C, D, and E. And the no sources are A and C. C would be the one that sort of has a two-sided view of this statement. And we could write it like that. We could write 4 arguments from these sources and 2 arguments from the no sources. However, as a matter of strategy, I would not write C on yes. I would spend time writing C on no. I would want to balance out my sources around the assertion, and we will see at the end of page 2 why that is a sound strategy. So now that you have read the sources, and sorry, I didn't mention this earlier, but both N and O-level students, after reading the sources and categorizing the sources, can you also pause the video and highlight the evidence that you used to figure out which side the source was? A yes source, a no source, highlight the evidence. Okay, because I want to launch into the lesson proper. So if we were to look at the sources and the background information, is casual racism a problem? When you think about this, you're like, what is casual racism? It's here. It's negative stereotypes and prejudice that's said every day. It's criticized, right? Is it a problem? Is it a problem? In other words, when we analyze this question, right, what are the negative impacts? The idea of problem should lead you to think about the idea of negative impacts. What are the negative impacts of casual racism? And this is how you would explain the assertion as well. So if I were to look at source A, in any multiracial society, there's always a need to discuss the issue of casual racism, how it increase awareness. So in other words, the minister recognizes that every multiracial society will have people who will make remarks about other races, and therefore, in a sense, this is something we expect. The question is how to manage it. Government agencies and non-government organizations organize campaigns, conferences, dialogues on casual racism. We have made much progress. We have clear government policies, and Singaporeans generally accept multiracial values. So even though in every society there will be some sort of difference, the question is how does the government and the people manage this difference? And in Minister Shanmugam's view of things, we have managed it quite well. And therefore, this is clearly a no source. Casual racism is not a problem in Singapore because the government has put in great effort and has effectively nipped any potential problem in the bud. Of course, things are not perfect, but the government has done some good work right here. And by ensuring the conferences, the forums to speak up on casual racism, it prevents people from bottling in their feelings, it loosens tensions, it reduces conflicts. How do we put our ideas into a response? We start with ATQ. Because the question was how far do they show, the command word here is show. We go with ATQ, source A, does not show, source A is a no source. It does not show that casual racism is a problem in Singapore. This is the ATQ and the inference all rolled up in one. And I hope students for N-level, you can see how this is an ATQ. Right? It uses the command word, it says does not. And then I must explain, because the government has played a great positive role in promoting healthy relations. Right? You could explain further. The role was to create forums for people to talk out their feelings, prevent unhappiness, stop minorities from feeling oppressed because they can speak up. This would help to solve problems quicker. You know, I could develop the sorry, this is the bad habit of Mr. Seow. I once I start thinking and talking, I end up like making your answer really, really big and long, right? So providing government provided forum for discussion, which would make the minorities feel recognized, help them resolve their unhappiness and prevent conflicts, and also enables early identification of potential problems and pain points to enable swift resolution and prevent incipient tensions. These efforts will prevent casual racism and help Singapore move towards racial harmony. Yeah, so this would be a very fat, very well developed, very long answer. But in other words, you can see where I'm going with this solution. It's actually an inference, and I'm inferring from source A, but my inference focus is the assertion, is the statement that we have identified from the previous page. And so this is how we think about the assertion question, and I would write exactly as this box presents the information. I would write this as my response to the question. Does that make sense? Right? So you would do it source by source. You could bunch and group sources, but I find that doing it source by source tends to be an easier way to approach the question because you think about one source at one time. Of course, if you have an alternative approach where you want to bunch the sources, you can let me know. We can discuss it. It is possible. But I will let you know the drawbacks so that you can make an informed choice. This is about writing strategy under exam pressures. Okay, so just to switch over to the O-level part quickly. If you were an O-level student, and this was the assertion, the command word is how far you would agree, and therefore my ATQ is yes, I agree. And this is the stand. I agree is my stand. Right? Yes, I agree. No, I do not agree. This is my ATQ and stand. Can you see that? I'm drawing on the sources. The sources are important. You have identified the sources evidence that supports your stand. But ultimately, this stand, you have come up with it because you are thinking about what the source has said. And you craft an argument from it. So for O-level students, just be clear that while the technique is similar to N-level, your approach now, your ATQ is how far you would agree. I would agree. This is the O-level method. So I'll continue teaching on the N-level side of the worksheet. O-level students, please be conscious. Look at your own worksheet. Your ATQ is how far do you agree? I agree, I do not agree. I just want to do one more source from source B, and then I'll talk about how the question is marked, and then I'll conclude the lesson. And importantly, for O-level students, I'm going to teach you the so-called bonus mark route. So for O-level, there is a so-called bonus mark component. Okay, so now we look at source B. I've already given you the ATQ and inference. It is a yes source. So we look at source B. Can we take, pause it, highlight the source as you need to. Please take 3 minutes. Okay, so you can see from source B that there are some really rude remarks, right? Terribly racist and rude remarks being made to this brown skinned lady, and she is unhappy, right? She's folding her arms, she's frowning, but she's not rebutting. She's silent, or is she silenced, right? So we are gonna put in the evidence first, and then we can sort of clean up the inference. This is evident from source B. It shows a frowning, brown skin lady with with arms crossed, right? Or hearing statements such as "apu," "ne jokes," and "the one from India, so smelly." From this evidence, I think it's quite clear that casual racism is a problem. It is a yes source because the racist remarks are made every day to minorities, which makes them feel upset and unable, but also unable to respond. That's not enough. I need to develop the explanation further. I just taught this lesson to my Sec 4s. They came out with two pretty good explanations. Let me see if I can remember them. So one of my Sec 4s said, this was Bellamy. He said, racist remarks made and minorities endure more racist remarks against them, which is unfair and creates causes psychological hurt. So that is one part where it's a problem. People in Singapore are hurt and upset because of these racist remarks. The other Sec 4, Justine, he said minorities may be frustrated by these remarks, leading to tensions and conflicts within society, racially charged. So this could be another set of explanations. So you could park in multiple explanations for the same source. It will be a very strong response. What is the problem? What is the limitation? Two, you are limited, one, by ideas. Maybe you didn't think about it under exam stress, and then after the exam, of course, your friend tell you, I wrote this, and you're like, oh my god, I did. So that is one constraint, ideas. The second constraint is time, right? If you keep developing on one single source, you will be stuck for time. And this is the part where I want to move on to the last component of the lesson, how question 5 is marked. Before I move on, for my students, your homework, complete these two boxes on your own for N level. Same for O level. You can use what I've taught in this N level lesson, apply to your O level notes, do the two boxes on your own at home, and then, you know my style, copy all four answers on foolscap with the question. So on foolscap, you would have this question. O level, please, you just follow your own question. Okay, it should be self-explanatory, what I want you to do. And then you would write the paragraphs as I have put here. So you would, so this is a good place to pause, I think. You would copy the question on foolscap. You would copy the source A solution. You would copy the source B solution. And you will continue to copy and write source C and D both in the notes and on foolscap. If it happens that I did source C in class or source D in class, you can use the solutions we did in class and copy it on foolscap. And why should you copy this again on foolscap? Is it so that your hands break apart from the pain of writing too much? Not really. The point is for you to remember the structure of your response, how to write a solution. The same thing for O-level students, but O-level students, please refer to your own writing frame, refer to the correct ATQ, do not just blindly copy from the N level worksheet that I've shown in this video. Marking scheme. So mark scheme, it is at the bottom. L2 shows or does not shows. For N level, this is 3 marks to 6 marks. And for N level, L3 shows and does not show. For N level, this is 7 marks to 10 marks. For O level, this is L2 is a. So the levels for O and N level are the same. The levels for O and N level are the same. You can take down the relevant one for your exam, by the way, on your notes. Please don't go and take down the other national exam ones. What's the point? But the marks are different. O level here 2 to 4 marks. Here is 5 mark to 8 mark. And there's a +2 component. So O level is harder, quite significantly harder. So I'll talk about the extra +2 at the end of this video. So N level students, you can sort of hop off, and then I'll talk about +2 at the end for O level. 2 remarks. First thing is over here, you notice that this thing called valid source use. It means you must use evidence from the sources, exactly as how we did it, right? This is a very good example, right? We draw evidence and we explain from the source. So you must use the sources, you must draw evidence, and you must craft the argument. If you follow the lesson and you follow exactly what we did today in this video, you are fine. You are following the requirements of the mark scheme. Second, what happens between L2 and L3? How come, let's talk about N level. How come it jumps from 3 to 7? Okay, so what is a 3 and what's a 7? Imagine I just put it here. Imagine in the categorization table, we said yes, source was yes, casual racism is a problem, was B, D, E. For N level, no source, we said was A and C. For N level. So if you were to write 2 sources, B and D, you would fall into a 4-mark answer. If you wrote yes, B, plus no A, this would be a 7-mark answer. In both cases, you have really analyzed 2 sources. You have 2 paragraphs. But why is this response with 2 paragraphs, same as this response. Why is this response awarded 3 marks more? You know, it's a huge jump. Why? Why does this response merit so much? Because the student, the candidate, demonstrated their ability to see from both angles, from both sides of the topic, right? That it's a problem and it's not a problem. Because this candidate managed to identify and argue from both perspectives, they are showing a higher level of thinking than someone who's only arguing from a single perspective, which is why when we go back to the objective of this lesson, we said that we wanted for and against the assertion. We said we wanted multiple perspectives. I think now page 1 should start to make more sense to you. And then the next question is, what is my strategy? To me, the strategy is very clear. You should write yes, no, in alternating order, such that if you run out of time, you write yes, no, yes, and you jump to the essays. At least you have had a try at both sides, yes and no. So really, you want to make sure you have something on both sides to hit L3 and get 7 minimally for N level, 5 for O level. And let me talk about now the categorizing part. Remember that for N level, we said that this source C was on both sides, but I recommended you using it on the no side. 2 questions might emerge from you. First question is, what if I write source C as both a yes and a no? Answer, acceptable. You have to write 2 separate paragraphs. 1 paragraph on yes, 1 paragraph on no, but you can draw on source C, the same one source, for 2 sides. So it's acceptable. Why then did I say I would prefer you to use source C for no? Why do I want to balance? It's because of safety. Imagine that your source A answer was imagine you didn't use source C for no, and your source A answer was taken as wrong, rejected, invalid inference. You didn't explain properly. Then if source A is wrong, you are left with BDE. Maybe BDE is all correct. It's all correct. And this would be a L2 for N-level students. It will be a L2, maybe 3, 4, 5 marks. This will be a 5-mark answer. Whereas if you had just written B and C, this would be merely L3, 7-mark answer. So the takeaway is you want to write a balanced solution, not just to prove to the examiner that you can do multiple perspectives, but strategically, you want to try to hit the L3 component, right? So that if any one source is wrong, write 2 sources on both sides. If any one source is sort of wrong, right? If one source is wrong, you still have both sides hit. So that's the strategy. So N-level students, I think you can hop off now. You've understood the mark scheme, you know where we're going. You can now go and try source C and D, and then write the whole response on foolscap, staple behind your notes, and then submit when based on the due date I've given you. Okay, the end for N level. Now let me talk about the O level plus 2 component. Before I do that, O level students, I just want to clarify one thing, which is N level. I kept saying the sources we categorized was for N level. Because for your worksheet, the statement is here. Singapore is on its way to achieving a racially harmonious society. Remember, the N-level statement was casual racism is a problem. These are different statements. So for the statement of Singapore is on its way to achieving a racially harmonious society, the yes sources would be A and C. The no sources would be B, D, and E. So please take note that the sources yes and no depend on the statement you are given. I hope you realize this in your worksheet. I hope you didn't just blindly copy what I did for the N-level video. pause and check. If you don't understand what's going on, you go back to the sources. For this part, for O level, I said that your L3 was 5 mark to 8 mark, right? With a +2 component. What is this +2 component? You can now write it in your notes. The strategy, by the way, is the same for N level for the first 5 to 8 marks. You just write 2 sources on both sides, yes and no. Minimally 2 sources. You can do more, but I don't think you have time. So normally, in terms of time management, students will be able to write at most about 2 on each side. 2 yes and 2 no. And as I said, the good strategy is alternating. Yes, no, yes, no. +2 component. You can achieve a +2 component by analyzing a source based on utility, reliability, sufficiency. So this is the part where you're familiar. You could provide contextual knowledge to support or further explain a source. So if you read a source and you're like, oh, I actually read this in the news. I know something about this that I want to share. This source really is telling me the right thing, and here is more information about this statement. You could share it. Finally, you could reach a balanced conclusion on the statement, on the assertion, using the sources. And so take this down. Take this down on the on your notes for O-level students. I'm going to show you the first route and the third route. The second route is a bit tricky. It always depends on the source and the case study. We can't really prepare you for this, right? It just so happens that any topic that we set in the exam, maybe you happen to know something about it, and you write a little paragraph to say, oh, furthermore, I also know that this has happened, this has happened, this has happened, and really this information proves something about the statement. You will see it, you could write it, we will tell you how that particular answer looks, but there's no formula that we could give you to do the contextual knowledge solution. So I would really teach how to approach utility, reliability, and balanced conclusion. Does that make sense? So let me go to the solution set. Okay. Utility, you have learned in lessons, is about how much value a source adds to your understanding of a topic. In this case, we could potentially argue that source C, by being written by someone who has been working in this field for so long, source C has expertise, source C is knowledgeable, source C is reliable, and therefore source C is useful in arguing that Singapore is on its way to achieving a racially harmonious society. You could pause the video here and read this response and see how I do a bonus component using source C to evaluate utility. What about reliability? I could evaluate source E's reliability by using a cross-reference. Source E claims in the story that racial minorities are not taken seriously, they are being ridiculed, they are being laughed at through the jokes. And where did we see this? We saw this in source B. We saw this in the brown-skinned lady who is not impressed, who's folding her arms, or who's enduring the Apu Nene jokes. So this would be a very clear cross-reference. You would want to give evidence from source B as well. Sorry, I should put it in. This is evidence from source B. So you want to put in evidence from source B as well. And this cross-reference established the reliability, and therefore source E is reliable, and therefore it does strongly demonstrate, does prove you really do not agree that Singapore is on its way to achieving a racially harmonious society because of all these negative racist jokes and the silencing of the minorities. Another route, the last route, balanced conclusion. I'm just going to read this out. So you could do this route. On balance, I believe Singapore has been making efforts to achieve a racially harmonious society, but more can be done. On one hand, sources A and E highlight the efforts by the government as well as social groups in creating forums and dialogue sessions to build harmony among different races and address any tensions and challenges that may emerge along the way. But on the other hand, sources B and E highlight that the lived experience of minority races remains one where racist remarks against minorities remain commonplace and everyday. Is commonplace and everyday, and minorities even have to remain silent and endure such hurtful actions. Source D even argues that minorities attempt to redress the wrongs, they are shut down, which adds insult to injury. In conclusion, while the spirit of dialogue and organizing of meetings is a good starting point, much more can be done by citizens of Singapore to shift their mindset and culture on cultural racism, be more mindful of their words and attitudes towards minority races, and thus make more progress towards achieving a racially harmonious society. So this would be an example of a balanced conclusion. O-level students, your +2 is not easy to get. Do you have to do everything? No. Pick one. Analyze utility, analyze reliability, or give a balanced conclusion, or give contextual knowledge from one to add on to one of the sources. Pick one route to try for the +2. Do not spam everything because you will not have time to do essays. Time management. Okay. So for O-level students, to recap, we have learned categorizing sources, arguing for and against the assertion using inferences, right? And finally, and how to achieve the +2 route by using utility, reliability, sufficiency. Sufficiency just means like, did the source say enough? Did it give enough data to prove its point? So sufficiency is about the idea of enough. Did the source give enough evidence to prove its point? Or the route through contextual knowledge. Again, try this. Show us your response. I'll give you some feedback or reach a balanced conclusion. Okay, it's been a long lesson. I hope you learn now about the evaluation skill. All the best in your social studies learning ahead. Thank you.